All right, I would like to call to order the April 15th Milford City Council meeting. We are very excited tonight to be joined by Amelia Cub Scout Pack 443. They're fourth graders from my former school, Amelia Elementary. They took a tour of the police station and they are going to present the pledge for us. So you guys want to come on up? For your spots. Okay, whenever you guys are ready.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. You can be seated.
Good job.
Nice job. Jackie, you please call the roll?
Yes. Mayor Evans,
Yes, here. Sorry.
Vice Mayor Parrish,
Here.
Mr. Velardo.
Here.
Mr. Price.
Here.
Mr. Thompson,
Here.
Ms. Cooper,
Here.
Ms. Chamberlain.
All right, that takes us to something not on the agenda, but we are going to swear in another Parks and Rec Commission member. So, Mr. Lilly, if you'll join Mr. Pacheco at the podium, get you sworn in.
Thank you very much. Yes, sir. Okay.
Maybe there's an updated one.
Okay.
Here it is.
Yes, sir.
I printed this one out at home.
I, Matthew Lilly,
Promise to swear
promise to swear
to support the Constitution of the United States
to support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
the Constitution of the State of Ohio,
and the Charter of the City of Milford,
and the Charter of the City of Milford,
and to faithfully,
and to faithfully,
honestly,
and impartially
discharge the duties
of
Parks and Recreation Commission member
and Parks and Recreation Commission member
to the best of my ability.
to the best of my abilities,
So help me God.
so help me God. Thanks, sir.
Thank you for volunteering. We appreciate it.
Matt has been hard at work already and attending meetings, and he finally, with his busy schedule, we're able to make it official.
Good.
So thank you, Matt.
Welcome. Yes, welcome. He's our new neighbor in Forest.
Yes, he's a forest, yes. Oh, and I can do that.
The blue, yeah, the blue house. He's our new
Welcome
neighbor.
to Milford.
Welcome to the neighborhood.
Thank you.
Lovely new painted.
Been here before.
All right,
looks
that
so
takes us
nice.
to proceedings. Do I have a motion to approve the council meeting proceedings from April 1st, 2025?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes.
That takes us to financial statements. Do I have a motion to receive the March financial report?
Go ahead and make the,
So moved.
okay, I'll second, and I'd like to have discussion if we
Sure.
could, before the vote. I just, and I'll direct this to Benjamin, just before we have to approve these in a couple of weeks, I just would need some clarification for the appropriations. There's a very large discrepancy that is mentioned here, that the available resources is 38,748,000 and something, as opposed to the current appropriations of 29,800 and change. And I believe that's what we based our budget off of, if I'm not mistaken, of what those projections were. So I just want a clarification of how we came up with another 8-point-something million that's in there. And then also just a further explanation for some of our Red Tree and some of those other investments that, this month alone, and if they did go up $1 million, that's fantastic, but I just, and if that is a trend, that's very, but I would just like some more clarifications before our meeting when we actually approve those.
We will get you answers.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Mr. Velardo. Anybody else have questions before we?
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
That takes us to public comments. Is there anyone from the public that would like to make a comment? All right, seeing none, that takes us to the city manager report. Mr. Gunderson.
Thank you, Mayor. I have provided the city manager report. I'm going to highlight a few things, and then the rest council can read on their own time. But I wanted to start off by congratulating 3 members of our city team, Councilmember Kim Chamberlain, Mr. John Lewis, and Mr. Adam Day for their graduation at the Tree Commission Academy last week. They had I actually did not know that they were going to be presenting on we'll call it a final project, but they did a good job highlighting some of the great things in Milford, but they discussed our upcoming event related to aging the tree, and I didn't realize how much actually went into this program, and it was a 2-year commitment, and they spent lots of time, and now they're experts. So I think there was quite a few members there. How many were in total?
I don't know.
Maybe 12. But they've had the best presentation by far, so I wanted to congratulate them. Not that I'm biased or anything. Moving on, I wanted to congratulate Soras for their award at the Salute to Leaders through the Claremont County Chamber of Commerce. Recently submitted for the following grants, 2 congressional earmarks for the same project. We've got the wastewater UV bulb installation project. Last year we submitted for OPWC funding, or CDBG funding, excuse me, and we missed out on that. We scored well, but missed out on it. So I did submit for the congressional earmarks, and by doing this, hopefully we can get some money through the congressional earmarks, but hopefully our contribution's a little bit less. So this was something that I felt was, due to it being $540,000, that's something that we could submit for and would reduce our contribution. Secondly, I did not ask council about this, but I had to think quickly on my feet. I was unable to secure enough quotes for pickleball courts for the Claremont County Parks District. We passed an agreement to apply for the grant, but we didn't put pickleball courts specifically. So due to the irrigation at 5 Points being a significant cost, I was quick on my feet and I submitted for that. So I hope council doesn't mind me doing that. Hopefully
Great.
not.
Please do.
And then lastly, the last thing I wanted to discuss was my 100-day plan. This is the 100-day, or the first meeting after the 100 days. I think it's technically 93, so I still have a few days. But I gave a brief highlight or overview or summary on my actual city manager report. I've spoken with a few members of council regarding the state of the city, and I guess this is my time to discuss it with council as a whole. But due to me coming in December of last year and not really being part of the previous year's projects, my recommendation is to council, due to the stuff that we have in the pipeline, that we do a mid-year state of the city. I can do something that is earlier than that highlights some of last year, but I think that this would be a good opportunity for us to highlight some of the great things that are going on currently. And due to it being the middle of the year, that would be a good opportunity to build that momentum, going into the following 5 or 6. So I wasn't sure if council had any objections to that, but that would check off that component of my 100-day plan.
Be okay with that?
Sounds great.
Sounds good to me.
Excellent. Thank you. 5-year plan. At the next council meeting, I will be proposing to committee of the whole a strategic planning quote. It's a consultant. He was in local government for many years. I think he was city manager in Madeira for about 20 years. He's got some surrounding projects in Miami Township. He's doing an economic development plan, or the company. So due to us, I felt that when completing a 5-year plan, I can go down the list and say, hey, we need to replace a lawnmower, we need to replace a weed eater, and so forth. But in terms of projects as a whole, I felt if my vision doesn't align with council, it's very hard for me to come up with a 5-year plan and say we want to accomplish these projects and not have council's buy-in. So I felt if we did some sort of strategic plan, we could highlight certain areas or certain items or initiatives and say, hey, these are our strategies moving forward, or this is what we're prioritizing. Now let's compound that into some sort of comprehensive plan. So that is what I'll discuss next meeting, but we are making, I believe, progress with that, so we can discuss that next meeting and see if we have aligned visions there. Next item is the marketing component. We have created the Milford On The Go app, which is our mobile app that is live on the app stores. We've also been doing office hours with the city manager, so we will be planning April's here shortly. That's just a good opportunity to sort of bring more exposure to projects, some of the decisions we're making on a legislative level, and address any sort of changes that might affect our residents. So that's been, I believe, received well. And then staff is also working on the website, and that will really pick up early summer and should be completed in Q3 of this year. And the last thing I wanted to really touch on is the Business Retention Expansion Program. I've got the framework all laid out, and it is set to be released on Friday. And the Business Retention Expansion Program is really important to me, and it's important because it establishes relationships with our existing businesses. We, go out, meet with them. We want to, ensure that they know who on the city council and on staff, if they have issues, who can they go to? Are there any needs? If they, there's a list of things that, if they need there's a pothole that for some reason has been fixed, we can address those issues. So it's just a good opportunity to get, have a face-to-face conversation, listen to what their needs are. If there's any future projects down the road, we can sort of, tee them up and connect them to other resources. And so that's a very beneficial program. So that'll be released on Friday. Other than that, that will conclude the report unless there's any other questions.
Questions?
Or feedback on that 100-day plan if anyone has anything. I think I checked off a few of them, and we have maybe 2 of them outstanding, but next meeting will be discussed further.
Everybody good?
Sounds good.
All right, thank you, Mr. Gunderson. That takes us to police report. Chief Mills.
Thank you, Mayor. You should have my March monthly report in front of you, so I'll just touch on a couple of the highlights and then take any questions you may have. As far as numbers goes, 1,053 call records consisting of 483 vacation house checks and school checks, 164 offenses investigated, 19 auto accidents, 96 traffic warnings, and 124 traffic citations. You'll notice under the notable occurrences, we did have 2 seniors that were targeted for scams, one that came in by email, another that came in by a pop-up ad. The one thing they both have in common is the involvement of gift cards. I can 100% promise our residents if someone is asking you to pay them in gift cards, especially if it was an unsolicited call, it's a scam. So if you have any questions, please call our office, 513-248-5084. We'd much rather help you determine if it's a scam than find out after the fact that it was. The one resident lost $18,000. The other one figured it out at the 11th hour when they wanted him to read them the PIN numbers, called us, so we were able to stop that one. That one was a $9,000 attempt. So please don't hesitate to call us if you have any questions about an unsolicited phone call, email, text, or pop-up. The only other thing I was going to mention, and I'm not even sure it's in the report, is that you will start seeing the 988 crisis and suicide hotline on our cruisers through a partnership with the Claremont County Mental Health and Recovery Board. A grant-funded project was extended to us to purchase those for free, so we're going to start placing those on our car. If you're not familiar, that is a free service where you can speak with a counselor. It's 100% free and 100% confidential. So please take advantage of that if you feel the need.
Thank you.
Any questions?
For Chief Mills? All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Thank you. I believe there's no fire and EMS report tonight. Mr. Parrish?
Okay, so, Ms. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion pursuant to and in accordance with Section 3.051 of the Milford City Charter, 121.22G1, to consider the appointment, employment, dismissal, discipline, promotion, demotion, or compensation of an public employee or official, or the investigation of charges or complaints against a public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual, unless the public employee, official, licensee, or regulated individual requests a public hearing.
Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes. And then I'd like to make a second motion for executive session pursuant to and in accordance with Section 3.052 of the Milford City Charter, 121.22 G2, to consider the purchase of property for public purposes or for the sale of property at competitive bidding. If premature disclosure of information would give an unfair, competitive, or bargaining advantage to a person whose personal private interest is adverse to the general public interest.
Second.
Mr. Price,
I'll recuse myself from that.
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish,
Yes.
Ms. Evans.
Yes. All right, so we'll be going to executive session, and we will be returning to finish the meeting. Thank you, guys. Motion to return the regular meeting? Do I need to do that, or
reconvene?
just to reconvene?
Sure,
Need-
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes, please.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo? Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
All right, do I have a motion to enter into the committee of the whole meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
All right, then I will call to order the Milford Committee of the Whole meeting. Jackie, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Price?
Here.
Mr. Thompson?
Here.
Mr. Velardo?
Here.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Here.
Ms. Cooper?
Here.
Mr. Parrish?
Here.
Ms. Evans?
Here. And we have public comments. I think we lost most of our public, but anyone from the public like to make a comment? All right, seeing none, I will turn it over to Mr. Gunderson for items for the Committee of the Whole.
Thank you, Mayor. I have our city engineer Dylan here as well to help me with this ordinance, but essentially we've got the Main and Lila Street Improvement Grant. This was a grant that, well, quite frankly, pre-existed my time, but we submitted in early January, and it has to do with replacing the sidewalks along Main Street and Lila Avenue. Since I've been here for the 2 months that I was here prior to submitting, or a month and a half, there was quite a few back and forth conversations, and we did our best to keep this project on track. With that being said, I think it was maybe a week before it was due, maybe less than that, ODOT came back with some revisions regarding the project and cut a few of the sections out related to the project, and that in turn reduced the scope and the price of the project. So I don't know if our city engineer wants to bring any further clarification of that, but he's smiling and is walking up, so I'm going to say yes.
I don't know, you're the engineer.
There.
It's even there when you're getting grief from the lawyer.
And is it on, Jackie? No, it doesn't sound like it.
Should be on now.
There we go.
Very good comeback.
I'm glad that nobody had to hear that. Yeah, so the project itself, I should say the grant itself dates back to, I think, maybe 2020, 2021. My understanding is that there was a bit of delay in scoping the project from when funding was awarded. Now, some of that comes from ODOT, some of that comes from potentially previous administration. I'm not sure. It also happens to be in a time when there was a large influx of funding to a lot of local communities. And so I know that ODOT was pretty overwhelmed with trying to facilitate a lot of these grants that were going out. So great for infrastructure. It just put a lot of pressure on the state. So this was one of those projects at that time. And the design itself, I think Kleinger's was authorized to begin design last summer. So that put this project already on a pretty short time frame. These types of projects, typically, design will span 2 to 3 years. This was under a year of design. Now, the submission that Benjamin's referring to was the final plans, which final plans were due shortly after what I presented last time to council. We had a meeting with ODOT. I think that there was a mix-up between Kleinger's and ODOT on what was required for ADA for a pedestrian access route. Pedestrian access route for ADA compliance is 4 feet, minimum 4 feet width. There are sections of sidewalk along the project area that are less than 4 feet due to right-of-way on the backside and utility poles on the front side. There is, at buildings, for the sake of ADA compliance, there are pinch points that are permissible down to 32 inches, down to 30 inches. Not the case for right-of-way facilities. The solution that ODOT had at the time in order to keep the project from being delayed was to exclude those from the project itself. There's a waiver process that ODOT has for the sake of ADA compliance. It's true for curb ramps, it's true for sidewalks, because the nature of the project itself is a pedestrian project, pedestrian improvements. The compliance is required. So in order to keep the project on the same timeline and prevent the delay and penalization from OKI, who is administering the funding, the solution was to cut out some of these pieces. I will say that that does not keep the city from addressing these pieces of sidewalk internally, but for the sake of the federal funding that's included with this project, they cannot be included. The legislative piece that's before you tonight, I should pause. Does anybody have any questions before I get to that part, before cost?
So these changes, is it permissible for us to do those in concurrent so that we're not tearing up and re-tearing up to make them, you know, the way we envision them?
It's not
from
gonna
day
look good with
Yeah,
half old, half new.
yeah,
Yes.
okay.
Yeah.
And
There-
that won't affect anything ODOT's doing. We would obviously have to bid it out or whatever. And theoretically, could we use the same, I mean, that would make the most sense to me.
Yes. Yes. You could engage the same contractor that's already mobilized on this.
But you talked about right away, and again, I don't know where we stand on some of these areas or how much you've looked into this or do we need to allocate additional right away, take additional property? Or
Yeah. In some of these instances, it would require, well, and that depends too. So if the pursuit end goal is ADA compliance, we do need to pursue either an easement or right-of-way with some of the property owners along. It's mainly along the Lila corridor. Main corridor, there's a bit more room.
On both sides, because we're talking both sides of the street, right?
Yes.
So whether we're encroaching into Baker or the bank or somewhere along in
Correct.
between. Okay. But it is potentially that we would be able to figure out whatever that cost is to do it
Yes.
what I call the right way. You know, so that to the mayor's point, that I think we'd be doing a disservice that we've got this, you know, $2 million project, and then we gotta come back and potentially tear up some of that $1.2 million project to make it right.
Sure.
Or it's just not gonna look right. It's gonna look half old, half new, half,
Right, but would that delay, though? That would be my other concern. Would that delay anything?
No, I will say that from a local perspective, local
The lawyer's
agencies.
right here. Everything you say is
Oh, yeah.
verbatim. so just remember
Local
that.
agencies
Yeah.
typically are able to move a little bit faster than federal funding.
Okay.
And I will say, just pointing out the fact that we did reduce the scope, that also reduced the expenditure. So we do have some money now. I can't help myself, so I do have to say, you know, To me, I envision streetscape on that road on both Main and Lila. To me, that's important. Not only, and I don't have this fully planned out. I do worry that doing this project does conflict with that, and I worry that at some point down the road, we're going to have to work around the new sidewalks because we don't want to complete a $500,000 project and have to tear it up. But I think that this is a good step, but I think it's also important to keep in mind as we're trying to address and think strategically into the future that I think that's a prime intersection, prime roadways to increase that streetscape. That's the entranceway. Those are the corridors into the city. So as we're making those changes, I just want to ensure that I get my thoughts out there because I think that is a huge goal of mine. So take it for what it's worth.
As long as those streetscapes do not eliminate a lane of traffic.
Agree.
Yes.
So that's my thoughts. That's,
I
you
agree.
know, yeah. Because so many times I see these communities put their streetscapes in, and there's a community just not too far from here that did it, and I think it's the worst thing they ever did. So,
Too much traffic.
conversely, in Warren County, they've done a lot of streetscapes, but they had the land to maintain the two roads and then do that. So anyway, that's my. Yeah.
Any other thoughts on that? Is council wanting to get numbers on what it would cost to do the whole project?
Yeah, I think
I think we
it's
should
definitely
definitely
worth our time.
have.
Yeah.
Now, can we, I know this has been brought up, I think by maybe 2 or 3 members of council, the intersection at 5 Point, looking at either doing brick or stamped
Yes.
concrete, is that something that, whether it's part of that additional bid or even just an additional item,
Yeah.
we look at doing that as well, just so we at least have that complete picture
Yes.
and we can evaluate it from there?
And I'll be, if my memory, and I wasn't on council yet, but if my, we actually
We-
discussed that
Yeah, we did. That was supposed to be part of the plan.
And I don't know how it ever got taken
yeah.
out of it, but
And then the new crosswalk going
Yeah.
across,
Yeah,
that
that's
would
what-
also be stamped or
Stamped.
bricked,
Right.
or it would all match.
Probably the one by
Okay.
Correct.
Lears should be too.
yeah, and again, you see them in other communities. I just think they're such an effective, crosswalk and much more visible. And personally, I like the
Looks
look of
nicer,
them.
yeah.
And, we've gotten criticized a lot, I think, sometimes by our crosswalks. So it would certainly enhance that, so.
My one caution is this legislative amount would infer that the project cost is, there's still a significant amount of available funds. There are 2 separate pieces on these ODOT projects where the engineer and the ODOT district will prepare a construction estimate. It will then go to ODOT central office for estimating and purchasing. They will develop their own estimate. Those estimates are never shared with anybody. So this number that you see in front of you tonight is based on their estimate.
628 or for whatever it is.
Yes, yeah, it which includes construction as well as the inspection fee for ODOT to inspect and administer construction. The engineer's estimate is still at that 1.5 million mark. So there will be potentially another legislative piece if bids come in over this amount. Again, this is based on central office's estimate. It's necessary for the bidding process, but final purchasing agreement may differ. So I do want to put out that disclaimer that it may appear that there are funds available on the table, but that may not be the case.
And if I may, correct me if I'm wrong, if I misinterpreted or misunderstood this email, is the lighting included or not included in this?
It is included.
It is
Yes.
included.
After some digging the last few days,
Okay.
it is included.
Well, I'm glad I corrected that because I gave the wrong answer today, so thank you.
I did not get the answer until this afternoon. It was, the plans inferred one thing. The lighting is included. There still will be monthly costs for the maintenance agreement with Duke, and obviously energy costs as well. I think right now those are estimated around $330 a month. But it's 2 separate pieces, and the cost to pay to Duke is separate. It's not necessarily itemized. in the project itself, but it is included.
So, I would recommend then that the law director draft an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an amended LPA federal ODOT LET project agreement with ODOT.
Second?
Mr. Thompson,
Yes.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Evans.
Yes.
Mr. Parrish.
Yes.
Ms. Cooper.
Yes.
And I think I would also like to thank Dylan yeah, he had prepared, I think, for a lot of tough questions, so I think we are certainly in the right direction, and appreciate him spending his evening here tonight.
So you're welcome to both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm this far in.
Yeah. Well, it's just nice to see that we have, a new group that I think is really gonna help us move forward in a lot of things. So,
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty, next item. I am asking council for a ordinance amending the appropriation ordinances 2024-317 and 2025-340 to advance $250,000 from the general fund to Parks and Recreation Fund 204, and to advance $2,926,400 from the general fund to the Water Tower Improvement Fund 515 to provide interim funding while grant reimbursements are pending. So further backstory to this, we are still waiting for reimbursements for the grants related to the kayak launch. So in order to ensure that we have proper funding within the Parks and Recreation Fund, we need to advance that over. However, we did just receive, I believe, another $65,000 yesterday. So I know we're trending in the right direction. We are still submitting the reimbursements, so they should be submitted at this point. So we're simply working on that. Similar to that, with the Water Tower Improvement Fund, we received $3 million from the Ohio Builds grants for the water tower. Due to the timeline in which we have to spend that, we are drawing down on the grants before we do the loan. So we have to meet the requirements. I believe it's December 31 of 2026 to spend that, because it's tied to ARPA funding. So we are continually getting the pay apps, or we'll call it the invoices, but because it's a grant and we have to work through the I forget the website, I apologize. We're requesting a transfer to get in the Water Improvement Fund so we can keep that moving, and we'll reimburse ourselves in the general fund once we receive that grant reimbursement.
and with our vote, we are guaranteed that all this money comes back to us, right?
Yes.
In that case, I would recommend that the law director draft an ordinance amending appropriation ordinances 2024-317 and 2025-340.
You know I had asked. I'll second that.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Ms. Evans.
Yes.
Mr. Parrish.
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain.
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Mr. Price.
Yes.
Mr. Velardo.
Yes.
I'll be working a long time. Thank you. Alrighty, next item is a ordinance to amend the Public Works Director and Assistant Public Works Director job descriptions. So I believe I've talked to council about this a few times. With what we have going on in terms of projects, oversight over the service departments or the public works departments, to me it's extremely important for us to have the high-level people that can oversee all the operations as well as help manage some of the projects we have in the works. I don't want to say I don't have the capacity to do it, but I know that there's much smarter people that are on our team that can help us and help guide me to make those decisions. So to ensure that we're operating as efficiently and effectively as possible, I wanted to reestablish those positions. We've had an assistant public works director and no public works director for I don't know how long, but to me, I've got two people in mind that I think are excellent people for the job. They're loyal, they're smart, and they love their job and they get the job done. And that's who we want on our team. So, with that in mind, I wanted to ensure that I created, or am asking for council to help me create these two positions, revise their job descriptions, and allow us to keep moving forward in a very positive direction.
I would make a recommendation then that the law director draft an ordinance amending ordinance number 17-1329, revising certain existing job descriptions for the Public Works Director and the Assistant Public Works Director as set forth in the attached exhibits.
Second.
Mr. Price,
Yes.
Mr. Velardo,
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain,
Yes.
Ms. Cooper,
Yes.
Mr. Parrish,
Yes.
Ms. Evans,
Yes.
Mr. Thompson.
Yes.
Thank you. Alrighty, I'm going to skip the CDBG resolution. I want to discuss the golf carts and transportation project first, as that will better guide me with the previous resolution regarding CDBG. So, I forget how many meetings ago, I presented a proposal by GEST golf carts with the idea of coming up with a 3-year plan to operate 4 golf carts within a defined area within the geofence that would help with, the goal would be to mitigate traffic, provide or promote more accessibility within that defined area. And I submitted the quote for council to consider. Since then, I have met with, and actually the mayor and I met with another company called Locomotive, similar type proposal. They are actually, I believe it's this month, they're going to open up their operations in the city of Hamilton. And they reached out to, I think the mayor or both of us, and asked to meet with us and provide their reasoning as to why their expertise would be needed here or wanted here. So, 2 things. One, I provided both quotes to council. So I have the original one, the guest, that's a 3-year contract, gives the hours of operation, 4 carts. It's, entirely on them. We're simply paying for the service, and after the first year, we would own the golf carts. Similar to that, Locomotive, it would be a 3-year contract. We would own the golf carts. We're simply paying for the service with them as well. There is some differences. With guests, the first one, we would keep 100% of the marketing related to the outside of the golf carts, and in my opinion, that's a way for us to reduce the costs that we would pay out of pocket. Would also be a good opportunity for local businesses to advertise. Locomotive, they're taking a little bit of a different approach. Based off of their proposal, we would keep 90% of the exterior marketing dollars. They would keep the interior, and then there's different percentages that it fluctuates year after year. Locomotive, the only real difference that I see is, one, the interior of Locomotive, they're going to sell advertising. They also discuss that of tablets, in which you can, it's like an interactive map. You can click on, what businesses are in the downtown. There's ads and marketing that are within those tablets as well. And then there's a cost difference. So the point behind this discussion is, we now have 2 proposals. I want to get council's thoughts on this, as to A, do I keep looking? B, do we like it? Let's take next steps and figure out what those next steps are. C, we don't want anything to do with it. But I want to reemphasize, at this point, I'm not really advocating for either one, and I can go more in depth with either of the options. But my opinion of this is, it is a significant cost. There's ways to reduce the cost on a yearly basis, whether it's marketing or if it's potential grant dollars. My mindset behind this is it's an opportunity for us to provide accessibility, which we all know is extremely important, especially in the downtown area. I think that we have an influx of people from outside of the city that come into the downtown on a daily basis. So the opportunity for them to utilize something would be something it would be a trained behavior that we would have to say, hey, we want you to park here and utilize this service, and we're trying to keep the cars off the roadway. We're trying to, promote people to stay here, because in a sense, although it's accessible, on another angle, it's not accessible, because they're gonna have to request a ride back to their car, okay? So now maybe they'll go from one shop to another, or, one restaurant to, a bar in town or another store. So to me, that's sort of, and I'm not, that's why I feel it could be very important. I really think that it really just provides that accessibility. So I'll turn it over to council, and you can better guide me on what that decision looks like. But we were approached. I said, hey, we said give us a proposal, and now it's my job to be told what to do. So
I'll jump right in. Here's what I think. I think accessibility and getting cars off the road is a great thing. Living in the communities up off of 131 where this can't even come up to my neighborhood to pick me up and I already have to drive down to get on it anyway, I'm more likely just gonna park close to where I wanna go and not wait for a golf cart, right? So from that end, and coming from the neighborhoods up there, I don't know that I can ask my neighbors up on the hill to pay that amount of money for something that, unlike the majority of the city down here, there's an extra hurdle for us to take advantage of that service, right? So for me, for that reason, it's gonna be a heavy lift for me. Again, I like the idea of taking cars off the road and having this accessibility option, just based on that geographical consideration. I'm not saying no, I'm just saying it would be very difficult to ask my neighbors to foot that bill for something, again, they have to drive extra just to take advantage of getting on a golf cart to not drive somewhere. Right, so that's my piece.
Anybody else? Thoughts? Excuse me, thoughts, opinions?
So I talked a little bit about this before, and I talked to Benjamin about it. Certainly are both companies quoting the same times and
I
seasons?
think so, yes.
It's close. Yeah.
They're close, okay. I think December would be super important, because we have way more traffic, way more people holiday shopping. And, like I said before, a lot of businesses close at 5. I certainly don't think even in peak season on Sunday, you would need it to go till 7. May Cafe's closed, 20 Bricks is closed, the Governor's closed, Flamingo's closed. So there's a lot of things on Sundays that aren't open. And it is a lot of money. I mean, I agree with you. I like the idea of it. I certainly think getting cars off the road is a great thing, not parking in places all day long. But I guess I'd like people's thoughts on, and I talked to Benjamin about this, and I talked to Kim about it. I think the city lots or someplace, the conversation about metering, I think there's a lot of things we can do that aren't $350,000 to $600,000 to see if we can try and mitigate some of the traffic problems, personally. And I don't know how much offset you can get from, the grant's one thing, but if you're talking about logoing it, I think the logo of it should be a Milford logo. I don't think it should be Cincinnati Distilling or the brewery, because then people think, oh, they're providing that service, not the city.
Do you think metering the lots will just create that turnover?
I do.
So we'll have more parking at the.
Again, this week, Baker Heating and Cooling had 6 trucks parked there almost all week.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So can I ask you one thing?
Sure.
And this is 30,000 feet up, okay? So let's say we went to metering the lot there by the bank, okay? Let's just use an easy one, or we can use Harvest Market, doesn't matter what it is, just hypothetically. So we meter those lots, you make no money off of that, and that's not really the point of that. The point is to, make sure people aren't staying there all day long. The point is not to make money off of it. So, say, unless they're extending their meters, they would theoretically, when enforced, they would have to move, right? So does that play into something like this down the road where we say, okay, Maybe it's a phase thing where we say, okay, we're gonna start metering these lots, you're not gonna stay here all day. So if they can't stay here all day, that means they have to go somewhere, okay? They either have to leave or they have to move somewhere else in town. So does that promote something like this? And I'm just throwing this out there. Does that promote something where we're, in a sense, we're saying, okay, you can stay in these core areas, right? The real accessible areas. Or you can go to some of these outlaying lots and then, you know, that's when we would utilize some sort of alternative transportation. Is that, does everyone kind of understand what I'm saying there? Does anyone disagree with something like that?
I don't disagree, and to everyone's point, I think we all like the premise of the idea, the cost, and I'll be honest with you, I would hate to invest this and see it fail in 1 year, and then we're out. And I don't see the true benefit for anyone besides the restaurants for this. And unless the restaurants are gonna buy into this, I think that would be part of the catalyst, because to Brad and other shops like that, if you look at the times, it doesn't benefit our shops, it benefits our restaurants.
Well, the times can be adjusted.
The times could be adjusted, but I'm just saying what their proposal is based off of that.
That was just what, like, our previous administrator gave
I
them.
don't like anything that is not 7 days a week. I think people are creatures of habit, and if they want to come down on Tuesday night or Friday, so until we can truly analyze and have some true data that says this many people potentially turned away, this many people couldn't park, again, I think parking is a perceived problem, not a real problem. And I know that it is an issue, but at any given time in downtown, if we had directional signs and things like that, there is more parking, you know, with the exception of the brewery, they've got their own issue. But again, I don't see how I could support this today, as it is.
I would have to agree, just from a cost standpoint, and we had talked about that, like a 3-year commitment, you know, what if it fails in year 1, and then we're in for this, now we have these golf carts and all of this, and I like the idea of metering lots, or like today, I was downtown Cincinnati, and they have photo enforce, so I mean, there's other ways to perhaps enforce parking, besides, you know, meters or whatever. But I would rather spend our money on showing people where else to park, where we do have parking that's not being utilized, before we do something like this. I love this idea. I just don't know if it's gonna be used. And to Christopher's point, there's a whole couple neighborhoods that wouldn't be able to use this as well.
And as far as restaurant staff, it certainly doesn't help with the first shift. And I don't know what time, I mean, the people that I know that work in the restaurants, when they work in the evening, they typically start at 3. So, it doesn't help
Help their
them
parking.
park off-site and get to their job if they don't start. And I realize the times
Yeah,
can vary.
That makes sense, yeah.
But, that would be something, if we pursued this, I think tweaking the times would be important.
And if we did some metering, like you were referring to, because if you drive up Main Street further away, or west of Harvest Market, there's spots available on the street. So would that disperse some of the parking if we had some metered, there'd be non-metered spaces and/or employees or whatever that would help disperse that?
Yeah, where I would see
Congestion.
metering would be 25 Main and Harvest Market. The bookends, the ones that are easiest to see, most visible, and the ones that people are most familiar with.
I don't see though why we would stop at lots at that point and why we wouldn't meter the street from that point to that point, because I know I've driven multiple times and there's a supposed 4-hour limit, and I know for sure that that same car is there for 8+ hours, right, and not being moved. So if we're gonna talk metering city lots, I would also look at metering Main Street in the core busiest part.
Up till 1978, maybe, there were meters on Main Street.
And I personally like having a mix. That way, if you don't want to park in a meter,
There's
park,
other options.
park somewhere else. But I think it allows some turnover in the parking where people aren't dumping their cars, or if they are, you know, most of them are phone apps. I get notifications
Right.
on my
Exactly.
parkings.
Yes.
But you can limit how many times you can renew it, right?
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
keep
Yeah.
it to 3
Yeah.
hours or whatever people decide makes sense as a start, and
I think we need to know, reach out to Baker right away and remind them again that they can't use that as their parking lot, because that does take up a lot of spots.
Is it, I don't remember, what's the sign? I don't remember if there's signage at all on that parking lot that,
I think, and we've contacted them before about.
no,
it.
I know
Oh,
that,
but-
but just.
I don't think
Is there
there's any
sign-
signs that has
Yeah, I
a
don't
limit
think
on
there's
it,
any.
or,
Yeah.
yeah. The other thing I wondered too, does anybody have any relationship with anybody at River Hills? The bank?
Oh, I talked to him about their back lot, because that's, I think, that's now their offices now.
Well,
that is
we
their
had
offices now?
HMA at Salt and Light, and I parked in there without realizing it says no parking. It was
Yeah.
after hours.
Yeah.
But, you know, KBA behind my building, their parking lot clearly says, and it adjoins Milford Social's back lot,
Right,
no parking Monday through Friday,
yes.
8 to 6, right? So I think if the bank was willing
Yeah.
to allow us to put a sign there that would indicate, because it says no parking.
Yeah, I mentioned that to Benjamin, because that's always empty because the signage, but they don't use it in the evenings or weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Lovin's, again, Lovin's has kind of the same thing, not during
Mhm.
these hours,
Right.
but after hours you could
Right.
park.
Alrighty, so,
Mark, any thoughts?
no, nothing that hadn't been said.
Okay.
so we'll say no on the golf carts for now. And then what I'll do is I'll look into, I've worked with, parking meter companies before, so I'll have a very easy time, or it'll be very easy for me to, move in that direction, and then I'll bring that to council and we'll go from there. Sound good?
Yes.
Alrighty.
One quick question. Do you think that's something that, I ask people all the time in my store about that, and it's a split. Some people like the idea of some metered, some people don't. I mean, do you think it's something that warrants asking for public feedback? Or just making the decision that we really think that's the right way to proceed and?
I think we'd have to make the decision myself.
I know that from my experience, the previous job I had up north, when I got there, there was parking meters on the main street. And by the time I had left, we had removed all the parking meters, and we were the last municipality in the county to do that. And, you know, if you ask people about, and actually what prompted that was we were going to increase or update the parking meters to a mobile phone and have the ability to use a credit card and not just coins. And we had quarter, dime, and nickel parking meters throughout town. It was like every other. It was crazy. But point being, you know, the argument was that by not having parking, people are more inclined to stay because they don't have to pay. That was the argument that was said. Now, the parking meters were installed because of business owners and renters that just sat on the road all day long and so forth. And we want to keep the customers
But I
that
think if we
accessibility.
start with the parking lot and see how that, you know, that would be a real easy, because again, if it doesn't work, it'd be real easy to, you know, again, we're not talking about actual meters, you're talking about one station where they put their phone in, they
Right.
do.
That-
they-
app.
they
And I think the
QR
older
code.
generation, like
Yeah.
I know some people that wouldn't be able to do that. You know, they can't use that technology, they still need a place to park. I think you have to have a mix.
Well, and that's what I mean, you still have street parking, but the actual lot
Yeah.
is, you know,
Yeah, and maybe you just start with one of the lots
right.
and see what, I mean,
I know in Loveland, they first had both technology, and they quickly did away with that, because that paying did not work, where they're strictly all mobile,
Yeah.
you know. But then there's a free parking lot further away, so.
And I think incorporated with, these are paid lots, and here is where all the other parking, and we do it all at the same time.
And you do signage, you
we
make
do
nice
need to
signage,
work on
you know,
signage,
ways,
yes.
you know.
And that actually works in conjunction with, I guess it's a partnership with HMA, but I've discussed in the past that of wayfinding signs. both driving but also pedestrian. So highlighting, okay, this is our downtown, this is sort of a map of it. We can do building numbers, these are the businesses, but then also highlighting that of parking, so people know, not only when they're driving, here's a P for parking, but also on the map itself. So it's promoting our businesses, but also allowing people to know, where things are at, not only businesses, but also parking lots and parks and so forth, so.
And I would like to see if, on the Milford OTG app, which I love, if there could just be a tab for parking.
Yeah.
Good idea.
Because there is a map, but it's sort of ferreting out which thing is the map on, and the current map only shows Harvest Market and 25 Main. So,
Okay.
again, sometimes I think it's just a matter of people. I do think there's a parking problem, and perception to me is everything, because if people perceive it's hard to cut, they stop. I don't go to Mount Adams, it's in my head. I
Right.
can't find a parking space.
Yeah, I agree.
Fair enough. Alrighty. Anything else? Thank you. I do
you.
not need a recommendation then. Alrighty. Last item I would like to discuss for committee of the whole is a resolution regarding CDBG. Council is passing a resolution to allow me to, or the city to submit for CDBG. I do plan on submitting for a few things. The UV bulbs for the wastewater plants, as I discussed in my staff report, I submitted for a congressional earmark, but that's not guaranteed, so I want to do my part to attract funding because it is needed. And actually, because of the other thing we decided not to go with, I've got one other one, and next year we will be far more prepared in terms of projects and whether it's infrastructure or something of that nature, so this is sort of piecemeal, but and since we have our city engineer, if I did a bad job explaining things, I'll pass it over to him. But and actually our law director too. We've got an issue on Mohawk Lane regarding a sidewalk along a hillside. I think we're all aware of what that issue looks like. We've been working with our city engineer to figure out what those solutions are. You know, we didn't want to write a big check, and we didn't want the property owners to have to foot those costs either. So. Based off of some discussion, our city engineer provided a quota around $35,000 to replace the sidewalk, and that's through a contractor because the piers that are put in the ground are doing their job. So if we simply replace the sidewalk and put up some safety, like I don't want to say a guardrail, but some sort of safety precaution, so you know, hey, there's a hillside. I thought this was probably a good, unique opportunity for us to seek funding to help pay for that cost, even though it's, you know, it's not $500,000. It's still something that neither the city nor the property owner has to foot. So there's a need, there's an urgency. So I'm hoping that scores well. So those are the two items that I plan on submitting for.
Those sidewalks have been closed for
I was gonna
4
say,
years at least.
It's been a very long-term.
Yes, there's been orange fencing up there forever, so.
Well, in that case, I would make a recommendation that the law director draft a resolution authorizing the city manager to submit to the Claremont County Commissioners a grant application.
Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Anything else, Mr. Newsom?
That is it. Thank you.
All right, do I have a motion to adjourn the committee of the whole meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
All right, that takes us to council comments. I would just like to thank Janet. I know Shannon on staff had a big role in the Easter egg hunt, the Easter egg extravaganza, but your whole committee, Parks and Rec, it was a beautiful day, and I think the kids found hundreds of eggs, thousands of eggs.
Thousands.
And it was a great day.
11,000, I think. was
Yes.
the number.
So thank you for all your hard work on that. Anybody else from council have a comment? All right, that takes us to Mr. Pacheco.
Thank you, Mayor. Have you ever watched an Easter egg hunt that lasts longer than a minute? I mean, anyway. All right, ordinance number, and we should do like a senior Easter egg hunt, and I guess maybe that might last anyway. Ordinance number,
How yours was.
yeah, exactly right. Dylan, this is how you work the microphone, hotshot engineer. Anyway, I'm sorry, but Dylan does an excellent job as your city engineer, and it's been excellent to work with him over these past few months, so thank you, Dylan. Ordinance number 25-350, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an amended LPA federal ODOT let project agreement with ODOT. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Milford, Ohio, Section 1. Previously by ordinance number 24-294, in order to obtain funding from OKI, ODOT, and the federal government for certain improvements to Lyle Avenue, passed 5 points US 50. City Council authorized the city manager to execute the LPA federal ODOT let project agreement with ODOT and any other documents necessary to obtain such funding for such improvements. Since that time, the scope of the project has changed, resulting in reduced cost to the city. Consequently, ODOT and the city want to enter into an amended ODOT let project agreement to accurately reflect the the changes and the reduced cost to the city. The terms and conditions of this amended agreement are attached and incorporated herein by reference pursuant to and in accordance with Section 12.03 of the Milford City Charter. Section 2, under and in accordance with Sections 12.05 and 12.07 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Motion to suspend the rules and read by title only. Second.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-350, an ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into an amended LPA federal ODOT let project agreement with ODOT.
Motion to adopt. Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-351, an ordinance amending appropriation ordinances 2024-317 and 2025-340. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the Municipality of Milford, Ohio, Section 1. The Council of the City of Milford hereby authorizes the City Finance Director to amend appropriation ordinances 2024-317 and 2025-340 by increasing the individual items as set forth and listed on the chart attached to and fully incorporated herein as provided in Section 12.03 of the Milford City Charter. Said amendments total $6,352,800. Section 2, under and in accordance with Sections 11.05 and 12.05 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance requires only one reading and shall be effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Motion to adopt. Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Ordinance number 25-352, an ordinance amending ordinance number 17-1329, revising certain job descriptions for the Public Works Director and the Assistant Public Works Director as set forth in the attached exhibits. Now therefore be it ordained by the Council of the City of Municipality of Milford, Ohio. The Council of the Municipality of Milford, Ohio, Section 1, Sections 3.14 and 6.07 of the Milford City Charter provide that council may by ordinance establish, abolish, divide, or combine and determine the functions, compensations, powers, qualifications, and duties of any office, position, or department not described in the charter. Section 2, previously by ordinance number 17-1329, council established manning levels for job positions within the city. The revised job position descriptions are set forth in the attached exhibits and fully incorporated by reference under and in accordance with Sections 12.05 of the Milford City Charter. Section 3, under and in accordance with Sections 12.05 and 12.07 of the Milford City Charter, this ordinance shall become effective immediately upon its passage by City Council.
Motion to suspend the rules and read by title only. Second.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes. Ordinance number 25-352, an ordinance amending ordinance number 17-1329, revising certain existing job descriptions for the Public Works Director and the Assistant Public Works Director as set forth in the attached exhibits.
Motion to adopt. Second.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Ordinance number resolution number 2025-662, a resolution to authorize the city manager to submit to the Claremont County Board of Commissioners a grant application. Now therefore be it resolved by the Council of the City of Milford, Ohio, Section 1. That the city manager being and hereby is authorized to submit to the Claremont County Board of Commissioners a community development block grant program application. The city manager is further authorized to sign any and all additional documents necessary to effectuate this resolution. Section 2. That this resolution shall take effect and be in force immediately upon its passage by City Council as provided in Section 12.07 of the Milford City Charter.
Motion to adopt.
Second?
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
I don't think we have any further business.
Real quick, I forgot to, and council charter review.
Oh,
Yeah, where do we stand on that?
Yeah, so I believe the draft's already been on the website, correct? And so it's just a matter of when council wants to
Yeah,
have
were we
a
gonna do public
presentation.
hearing,
I
right?
thought we were going to.
I think next meeting, we're going to formally announce it, provide a little bit more detail to it. Then we'll put it on the website and Facebook, so that way we're communicating it, and then we'll schedule a public hearing from there,
Okay.
as well as traditional council meetings that is always
Right,
open
and just to
to.
remind, because our next council meeting is not Tuesday, it's on the, because of the election.
That's right.
It's on the Thursday, May 8th.
Eighth, yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
okay.
All right, anything else? All right, motion to adjourn?
So moved? Second?
Ms. Evans?
Yes.
Mr. Parrish?
Yes.
Ms. Cooper?
Yes.
Ms. Chamberlain?
Yes.
Mr. Velardo?
Yes.
Mr. Thompson?
Yes.
Mr. Price?
Yes.
All right, thank you, everyone.